Okay, welcome everybody to the Mountain View Solar question and answer session. We've decided to put this together to answer people's questions. There's a lot of interest in solar. There's a lot of interest in batteries. There's a lot of interest in energy independence in this region. And we've been installing solar and batteries for 11 years here in the Mid-Atlantic. And we decided to start this forum to get information out to folks. There's lots of misinformation out there, and it's important that consumers have a good source to find good quality information from an experienced company that understands how the systems work, how they've progressed, and what's now available. So that's the reason that we're putting this forum together. We'd like your continued interest. We're looking for your comments. We want you to let us know. Okay, so it's COVID. I'm home at my home office, and that's my rooster you just heard. So this is live. We're gonna continue to do this and have more content for you. We're looking for input from you, the consumer. What would you like to know more about? We have a tremendous amount of knowledge. We have a very experienced team, and we have a great group of installers that work in the region that are very well trained. If you like the content here, please hit the like and share button. Also subscribe to our channel and follow MTV Solar on all of our social media outlets. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stacy, and my husband and I just recently moved into the area, and we saw some homes that had solar and brought us to thinking this might be an option for us. And my first question is, what makes a home a good candidate for solar? Like, would my house be a good candidate for getting solar?
Okay. Yeah, great question, Stacy. The first thing that we like to do is, look up your home address on Google and take a look at your roof space. And I'll share with you right now some of the things that we look at. You see this house here?
Yes.
Okay. So the number one thing that we look at with regards to solar is orientation. Where are you on the compass? As you know, if your roof is facing south, closer to due south, the better candidate you are. And as you can see on this roof space here, it's not exactly due south. So when you type in your address on Google Maps, and you look at a satellite image, from top to bottom, it's running north and south. So right to left is east and west. So you can see this house here isn't facing due south, but it's got a lot of southern flavor in there. So it's somewhere around 230, 240 degrees on the compass. So that's the first thing we always look at. And over the years, it used to be that solar was so expensive that if you were not facing due south, then it didn't make financial sense to go solar. But over the years, the cost of solar has declined to the point where, even if you're facing east and west, the financial situation, the economics can still work out. The next thing we look at is, are there trees, around the house, and are they shading the good orientation on the roof space there? As you can see with this one here, not so much. Maybe early in the morning, these trees here may cast a little bit of a shadow over these panels on this side here. But overall, this house, based on orientation and shade, definitely looks like a good candidate. And then the next thing you look at is roof type. Is it a shingle roof? Is it a metal roof? We have attachments for shingles, as well as for standing seam or rib block metal. If you have a specialty roof like a cedar shake or a slate roof or terracotta, those are kind of specialty roofs, and we usually kind of look for other options, like a ground mount, where you can, you have some open space where you can put a ground mount, and then, have a fairly short trench to the house, and close to the service. So those are the main things that we look at. Your house doesn't have to be due south anymore. East west can be pretty good. And we look at the pitch of the roof and everything as well. And those are they all factor together based on the individual site. And that's what things look like. So did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you so much.
Good.
There are a couple of programs that people can access on their own. One is Google Sunroof, and it'll give you an idea of how much sunlight falls on your roof. That's not available everywhere. It's starting in the major metropolitan centers around the U.S. and expanding out, and it sort of gives you a color code as to how much light availability, so you can get an idea in your head ahead of time and determine, okay, am I going to have to trim this tree or do this, or if your home's a good candidate in general. But it is very limited.
Hi, my name's Kiki, and I have a question. I have some neighbors who have solar, and they say that their electric bill is much lower because they have a special meter, and I'd like to kind of learn what that meter is, what it does. I'm not sure.
So net metering, which is what you're talking about, is the basic underpinning of how you're compensated and what your financial return is by going solar. The basic idea is that you're generating electricity, just like any other generation facility out there, coal plant, nuclear plant. You have a mini power plant on your roof or in your yard. When you generate electricity, when you generate more than what your home is using, you can send it out to the local co-op or electric utility. There's a bidirectional meter that's installed on your home that measures how many kilowatt hours, which is a unit of electricity, is exported from your home to the local grid. For the utilities in our area, the co-ops and the investor-owned utilities, Dominion, Shenandoah Valley Cooperative, et cetera, they all provide a net metering credit. For every kilowatt hour you generate from your roof or from your yard, you offset 1 kilowatt hour that you use from the utility. So if it's sunny and you're generating tons of electricity, sending it out to the grid, that extra electricity that you generate during the day offsets what you use during the night. So net metering is the underpinning of the really the investment in solar, and it's almost a rate increase protection mechanism. Whereas utility rates go up and up and up each year, the electricity that you offset in future years gets more valuable as the electricity you're offsetting gets more expensive. So it's really the underpinning of solar.
Okay, and could I get enough solar to make more than I produce, or I mean, make more than I use?
Yeah, in a lot of places, folks will invest in larger systems because they know that whether it's an electric vehicle, a switch to electric water heating, a switch to electric heating and cooling, et cetera. Folks will invest in a solar system that's larger than what they use at the moment. So you can start building up credits to offset future usage.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, what type of equipment is best used for like our house or for solar in general? Like what is the best equipment?
So over the years, we've been in business for 10 years, and we've seen a lot of manufacturers come and go in the solar industry. And what we like to look for is a good, healthy company. There's three main components in the systems that we install. So you have the panel itself, then you also have your optimizer, and then you also have your inverter. So, and I'll show you let me show you real quick the way this breaks down here. So can you see the screen here?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a lot of panel manufacturers, and there's a few inverter manufacturers out there that are basically very well known in the industry. What we like to use is SolarEdge, and SolarEdge is the manufacturer of the inverter and the optimizer, and then there's the manufacturer of the panel. So I'll start by kind of highlighting the panel and what we look for there. The first thing that we really like is a company that is manufacturing. It's vertically integrated from PV grade silicon all the way through the actual panel product. In the end, it's all done in the same plant. So they take the silicon and all the way through the process to a complete panel. What we like about that is they have their really good quality control, and it usually means that their panel is going to perform better over time, because this is an investment that's going to last a very long time, and the warranties support that. So what we like to use is REC panels, and what they have are they actually have 3 warranties. All of them are for 25 years. So the first one is a manufacturer warranty that's 25 years long, and that covers things like the frame, if it's separating, or the clouding of the face of the panel, or water penetration, things like that. The next one is an efficiency warranty, and every panel has a little bit of a different warranty on that front, but generally it's a 25-year warranty, and it's somewhere from 80% to 92% through year 25. So what that is it's they're guaranteeing that the panels are going to perform well over 25 years. And then the next one is an install, is actually a labor warranty that we receive with REC. So those are a good panel manufacturer is going to have really good warranties to back up their panel, and that's something that we like to look for. From there, you have the inverter technology, which I touched on with the SolarEdge inverter and optimizer. And what we like about these is each panel will actually receive an optimizer. And what that does is it isolates each panel from one another. So you have the ability to, if you have shade, or if there's a malfunction with the panel, since it's isolated from one another, if one fails, it doesn't affect any of the others in the array, which is something that we really like, because things happen. Panels are very stout. They deal with hail very well, but every once in a while we have a bad storm come through that's out of ordinary, and we know that weather's changing more and more as time goes on here. It seems to be getting more extreme. If we have a panel malfunction, it's isolated to that individual panel, and the rest of the array can continue as normal. That also it's the safest, one of the safest technologies out there when it comes to solar as well, because the problem is to the individual module, not the rest of the array. And we can actually track that through monitoring, which we'll talk about later. The other thing we like about this is it's a DC to DC conversion on the roof instead of a DC to AC. There's some other technologies out there that do the DC to AC conversion on the roof, but we found that the DC to DC conversion is actually more reliable, and it's a little bit more efficient up top there, and has a lower fail rate. So from there, it feeds down to your inverter, which then converts it to AC power for your home to use. So these SolarEdge inverters are very efficient. So we like to look at efficiency and product reliability, and that's why we've selected REC and SolarEdge to go together.
What is the difference between like a 60 cell panel and a 72? Like, what really is the difference there?
Yeah, so the overall difference between the two is really, with the 72 cell module, it's 1 foot longer. So you're able, if you have a situation where you're able to fit 2 but not 3 rows of panels on your roof space, it may make sense to go with a panel that's a little bit longer, because it actually produces its efficiency is about the same, but it's covering more space, so you're able to maximize your potential by going with the 72 cell module.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
To add to Mike Studholm's point in regards to which equipment is the best, I want to further expand upon solar panels. There are a lot of different types out there in this space, and solar panels are one of the most important functions of a proper solar system. Solar panels come in many different flavors. As mentioned earlier, the standard residential type, which is a 60 cell panel, is 60 solar cells encompassed in a solar module. You have other panel types like a 96 cell from some manufacturers, which they use 96 solar cells within that solar module. And then you have larger, which is deemed commercial panels, but can be used on residential roofs as well, which are the 72 cells. So there are 72 individual solar cells in that solar module. So traditionally, because you have more cells in a 72 panel versus a 60 cell, the wattage output of that panel might be higher. So when you're comparing panels to panels, you want to take a look at what is the size of the panel, how many solar cells are in that panel, and what is the efficiency of those cells within that panel. The more efficient those cells are, generally, the higher cost that panel might be. But the good trade-off with a higher efficient panel generally is the warranty will be much better as well. Let's take some of the industry standard 60 cell panels. Those cells might have an efficiency range in between 15 to 18%, which are typically about a 300 to 320 watt panel in a 60 cell frame. Traditionally, the efficiency warranty that manufacturer might offer might only cover 80% of that power output at year 25. But if you're looking at a more efficient 60 cell panel, somewhere north of 20%, up to 22%, those are considered high quality, top tier panels. And the warranty might be 92% at year 25. So you might pay a little bit more up front for the panel, but it will produce more power over time. So the ROI on that particular panel might be a better investment.
With all of the talk about climate change and the Green New Deal or whatever it's called, I'm wondering if there are incentives for people to go solar. Is there anything state or federal, something that I can do?
Yes. So there's 4 primary drivers that drive solar in a community. There's policy, that's number 1. There's the electric rate, the how expensive is electricity that you're offsetting. There's the solar availability. Do you get a lot of solar? And then there's demographics. But policy is by far number 1. The type of energy mix in your community is a direct result of what policies there is, whether it's coal dominated or solar dominated, is a direct result of policy. So the incentives that are out there, the big one, aside from net metering, which is where you generate 1 kilowatt hour and you receive a 1 kilowatt hour benefit credit on your electric bill. The biggest one is the United States federal tax credit. So whether you're a business or a homeowner, you can invest in solar, and 26% of that investment is a direct credit on your tax bill. So if you paid into taxes, federal taxes in 2020, you can get that money back by investing in solar, at least 26% of your investment.
So what if I can't use all of that on my 2020?
That's a good question. It rolls over from year to year. So say you invested $20,000 in a solar system, you get $5,200 back as a federal tax credit back in early 2021 when you file your taxes. If you use half of that, say, you get $2,600 in 2021, and then you have the leftover $2,600 that you get back in 2022 when you file your taxes.
Okay.
That's the biggest policy incentive right now. There's additional policy incentives. There's deductions available for businesses on federal tax credits, which is great, or federal taxes, which is great. The USDA has a Rural Energy for America program grant funding, which is a huge driver of commercial solar in rural settings. On the state level is where it gets interesting. So you can take two states side by side. You can take Garrett County, Maryland, and Preston County, West Virginia, and look at them side by side. Same solar, same solar availability, same sunlight, etc. Garrett County has large solar facilities working their way through permitting in Maryland. In Preston County, you have none. Same demographics, etc. Policy is the only difference. So in Maryland, if you're a homeowner, you get $1,000 as an incentive from the state for investing in solar. If you're looking at batteries, you can get up to a $5,000 tax credit by investing in batteries. In Virginia, there is a slew of policies that made their way through the legislative session this past session that are going into effect on July 1 of this year, from shared solar, which is basically community solar, to renewable energy credits, to different pieces of moving towards renewable energy in Virginia. Virginia had a big legislative session. And in both Maryland and Pennsylvania, we're going to talk through it in a second, but you can get solar renewable energy credits, which is payment from selling your generation of solar in state. So the state policy setting is a huge driver and complement to the federal incentives for investing in solar.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, my next question is, what are SRECs? I've heard people talk about them. What is SRECs?
So that's a good question, Stacy, because SRECs can be very confusing for people, especially in the context of net metering versus SRECs. What SRECs are there for is to essentially meet state mandated renewable energy goals. So a state decides, okay, we're going to be this percentage of renewable energy by this point in time. It may be 25%, it may be 50%. Some states are more ambitious, and they will go for 100% renewable energy by a certain date. So what happens is the state then establishes a solar renewable energy credit market. And not every state has this. Some states have had it for quite some time. Some states, it's relatively new. So what it is it enhances your return on investment. So you have net metering where you are credited for the excess energy that you produce, but above and beyond that, for I think it's every 1,000 kilowatt hours usually is the standard, you get one SREC. So if your system produces, say, 20,000 kilowatt hours a year, then you have 20 SRECs available to you. And if I can share my screen here. All right. So as you can see in Maryland, we have SRECs, and what we have is a goal of 50%. I think it might be by 2035. So this gives you the value of each SREC, and you get a monthly check. And we like to use SREC Trade here because, and some people like to use their own broker, but SREC Trade charges a minimal fee. And it's easy enough for people to do. It's not quite like the stock market where you're seeing prices go up and down and up and down. A lot of times SRECs start high, and then over time, as the renewable energy goals are met, they drop down. So if it's a new SREC market or a REC market, it is an opportune time to get in. Also, as a state resets its renewable goal, we see usually the SRECs go up higher in value. So what this does is it decreases the amount of time it takes for your system to pay itself off, which is always a good thing. The faster a system pays itself off, the better your return on investment is going to be.
So I was wondering really what the total cost for an average system. I have a 2,000 square foot house. I use 12,000 kilowatt whatever's on my bill. what's the average cost, and like how long is it going to take for me to get that money back?
That's a great question, Kiki. A lot of variables go into answering that question. So what we'll do today is talk about averages.
Okay.
So if we look at the number of years, we've been in business for 11 years selling solar, and the average amount of money that their residential customer will invest is about $20,000 before the tax credits and incentives. So if you had a house that an average house with an average amount of electricity, and you were an average consumer, all those things involved, you would spend about $20,000. Now, of that, the 26% federal tax credit would give you back $5,200. So your net investment is under $15,000. So those are all important components. So you may have some state incentives, but the federal incentive is the big one at 26%. So if it was 20,000, now you're down to 14,800 of net investment. So we'll look at that number as we look at the return on investment. Okay. So people like return on investment, some like internal rate of return, some like how many years till it pays back. There's a variety of different ways to look at that. So we'll kind of cover them all briefly. So the ROI, or return on investment, is the one we get the most frequently. And the return on investment, in the 4-state area, the average is about 7 years. About 7%. So you get a 7% return on investment. So if you had your money invested somewhere, you would get 7% as a return on investment from your solar equipment. So if you have your money in, a savings account, it's going to be very low. If you have it in the stock market, which may or may not be the best place to be right now, pretty volatile, and it goes up and down. So, and that's my rooster. This is good. This is Facebook Live. In normal stock market conditions, we use that reference. Okay, so if you're investing your money and you're trying to get a high rate of return, you may be getting 5 or 6% in the long term. You're taking a risk in the stock market, and you know that it might go up, it might go down. You may lose your money. Solar is an investment that never ever goes down, and it never ever loses value because it's attached to the utility rate that you're paying. The utility rate that you're paying only ever goes up. People get confused sometimes and they think, oh no, but that goes up and down. That's gasoline. Gasoline goes up and down. Your electric company makes sure that you're always going to pay a little bit more. You see, answering my talk. So yeah, so 7% ROI is an average. It may be 8% residentially, and that's a good one to look at. The investment you make with solar is just that. It's an investment. So return on investment is a good question. So when people look at the percentage, that's one thing. The thing I want to make very clear is that your solar investment is insurable. Okay, it's a 7% return on investment, but it's insured. And you might say, well, how is that insured, Mike? Well, it's insured because it's real estate. It's an improvement. It's an improvement to your property attached to your real estate. Therefore, it's insured by your insurance company at a very low rate. And if anything were to happen to it, it's then covered by your insurance. So it's a 7% ROI that's insured. So as my accountant talks to me and he teaches me how to say this, he says, if somebody can find a 7% solid rate of return that's insured, they should go and get that. So from a financial perspective, that's why it's such a good investment. Okay. Payback in years. Okay, this one is a little bit different, depends on your utility rate and how fast utilities are going to raise the rate. But what we're seeing residentially is 10 years and under in most of the 4-state area, most of the utilities that we work in. So in 10 years or less, you will have paid back your system. And then from that point on, you've got long warranties, and you get a system that's paying you back by reducing your utility bill for the next 20, 30 years after you've paid it back. So it's a good investment. It's not even a long-term, it's a short-term investment, but it's very good. Did that answer the question?
It did.
Further to Mike's point, one thing to consider in the ROI, if you would like to, is the added equity that solar brings to your property.
Right.
So solar can increase the value of your property significantly, especially on the West Coast. There is very prominent And they have a rule of thumb there. Here on the East Coast, as solar is becoming more and more prominent here, you can definitely see the difference in one property compared to the other when one has solar and one does not. The property value does increase, and the property does not last on the market as long as a home without solar.
What kind of warranties are there out there?
I believe the question is, what kind of warranties are out there? There are several different warranties. All of the key components in the solar system is generally covered underneath warranty from the manufacturer. The key components in a grid tie solar installation would be the panel, optimizers, if available, and the solar inverter. Panels typically come with two warranties. They have a manufacturer's warranty for workmanship and defaults, and they have a performance warranty, which is based upon the actual performance of the panel rated over time. The next key component will be the inverter, which is responsible for converting that DC power from the solar panels to AC power to be utilized in the home. Each inverter manufacturer has their own warranty as well. Some will come with a 5-year warranty. Some will come with a 10 or 12-year warranty, and some can be extended all the way out to 25 years at a very low cost. As far as the warranty goes for the solar panels, the manufacturer's warranty can range in between 10 to 12 years or all the way out to 25 years. And most performance warranties are standard at 25 years. Their ratings might change. On the low side, you can see the panel will produce 80% at year 25. Some of the industry leaders, you can see that number jump all the way up to 90 to 92% at year 25. And the last key component of warranties that are offered is generally a workmanship warranty offered by your contractor or installer of choice. And those workmanship warranties will cover the installation of your solar system in their particular workmanship.
And just to add to that piece of workmanship, there's a buyer beware there, and buyer beware of a company that's been around 1 year that offers a 10-year workmanship warranty. The workmanship warranty is only as good as the company behind it. We've been around for 10 years plus doing solar and about 20 plus years doing green home building. So
good point. Good point, Dan. Yeah.
Great point.
We spend we spend time every year fixing, updating, and repairing systems that were sold by solar companies that went out of business. It's not, it's not an easy business to be involved in, and you need a good team of people that are well trained, and you need a good business plan. You need a good, strong company. So lots of companies come in with goodwill and a plan to be around for a long time, but they end up not making it. And then they end up leaving behind a variety of problems. They were just learning. Our company learned. We just learned a long time ago. So we've got the experience not only to put in good systems now, but to also come back and retroactively repair systems that were left behind by companies that went out of business. And it's not just a few companies. There's lots and lots that happen to. So, be careful who you pick. Research your companies carefully as you normally would with any significant investment.
And even to add to that point, even companies that do not go out of business, we still repair a lot of systems from customers reaching out to us that the company that they chose to install this system, generally they might have offered the lowest price, is no longer responding to any of their inquiries to fix their system or surprisingly even finish the installation. And that's when usually MTV Solar becomes contacted for us to finish the installation, fix or service that existing system.
Good point.
Yeah, and we are expanding our capacity to do that because we're seeing it so much in the market. So we want to be able to take those projects on or help people that have existing solar systems. So we're definitely working on expanding our capacity to do so.
I live out in West Virginia, and we occasionally get hailstorms and stuff like that. And I'm wondering what how the panels do in hailstorms. And we also live in a wooded area where we get a lot of squirrels and stuff that are up on the roof. And is there anything you can do to help make sure that the squirrels don't get in and do anything?
It's a great question. Yeah, there's the hail question is probably the one that's been around longest, and critter damage is also out there. So I'll start with the hail question. So we were trained that a solar panel will take a 1-inch ice ball traveling 60 miles an hour from a distance of about 50 yards. And I watched that display, and it didn't shatter. That's hard to actually understand for regular people. So here's the example I have that puts it in a much clearer state. Not too far from where you live in West Virginia, up in Pennsylvania, we installed a solar system with 30 solar panels on a metal roof. It was on a residence in a neighborhood. Years ago, we get a phone call, and there was a giant, hailstorm that did lots of damage to people's roofs, their siding, windows, vehicles, and everything. So the customer contacted us, and we went out to take a look at the system and to give them an estimate for the insurance company, because hail damage is covered by your insurance company. And we gave him the estimate. So before he went out, we took a quick look at the monitoring system that Mike just mentioned. And of the 30 panels, 28 were up and operating at normal condition. 2 of them were operating at less than 50%, maybe 30% of their normal capacity. So that was interesting. And the guys went out to take the panels off and just decommission the system. But they get out there, and the 2 panels that were producing at 30% were shattered. So it's like it is safety glass. So all the glass was shattered, but the solar panel was still making 30% of the power. Never knew that. Pretty amazing. So we took them all off and stored them in the garage. The insurance company agreed to the amount. And, a couple weeks later, the roofers came back out, and they were there to replace the metal roof. Incidentally, a hole in the metal roof, I always thought for some reason that it would be round. It's not. It's a slice about like that. The metal is rolled, so is the seam. When it gets penetrated, it just makes the seam a little bit wider. So that's a hole in the metal roof. It's not round. Interesting. So the roofers are out there, and they show up, and they're taking off the old metal roof. And the roofers are like, wow, this is kind of weird. There's like 8 holes in the metal roof, like holes all the way through the roof. And this one section, there's no damage. And he's trying to figure out what happened. So he says to the woman that owned the house, said, hey, what happened up here? There's no holes here. This seems kind of weird. There's holes all over your roof, but not here. And her answer was textbook. She said, oh, that's the area where the solar panels protected the roof. So it's very, very strong, stronger than a metal roof. Of the 30 panels, 2 were damaged. The insurance company replaced it all, and we put the 2 new panels up, and they're up and operating and have been ever since. So there's a good example of how hail works. Next, critter damage. Critter damage, mostly is going to be squirrels that we've seen. And usually the squirrels will not interrupt the solar system. They won't necessarily go under there and do anything. Occasionally they'll build a nest under the panels, and there might be some babies hanging out, or the squirrels might try to chew on the wires. And up until recently, we had very, very few problems with squirrels chewing on wires. But once in a while, when acorns hit the roof, because the oak trees are overhanging the roof, and the acorns collect against the rail, they go and eat them. And when they're eating the acorns, maybe they chew on the wires. Not sure why they're chewing on wires, but if the squirrels are on the roof, they may investigate that. So in order to stop that, we sell a product called Critter Guard, which is like a little fence that goes around your solar panels between the roof and the top of the solar panel that will slow down them trying to get underneath the panels to chew. Won't say it's impossible, but it doesn't make it easy for them. And usually squirrels are just wandering around looking for the easiest path to find some food. So the Critter Guard, if you have an area with lots of squirrels, we recommend putting Critter Guard on top of that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
What happens when the power goes out? And I have a battery system. Say I just have solar on my house. That's it.
So if you have a solar plus battery system, then you're well set up for when the grid is down.
Okay.
When the grid is down, your system automatically detects that there's no frequency coming in from the power grid, and it switches over to run off of your battery system, which we take careful care to size so that your battery system can be relied on for your critical loads during the time of a power outage. If you don't have a battery, then, and it may seem counterintuitive, but without a battery present, your solar system stops delivering electricity to your electric panel box, and you're out of power just like your neighbor who doesn't have solar. It's a safety mechanism that's required by the National Electric Code. So batteries are necessary for powering your home during the event of a power outage, and you can even work in a generator for a backup to the backup, which is typically the best design, most reliable. And we take great care to size the system to match your needs.
Okay. And when the sun goes down, well, then what happens?
If the sun goes down while you are while your power is out, then you're drawing electricity from your batteries that you generated during the day. And once the sun rises the following day, your batteries are recharged.
Yeah, something to add there is sometimes there's the misconception that there's a major change to the way your home operates when you add solar to your home. So if you have a grid-tied solar array, it's not limiting your power at all during any time. All it does is supplement. So when the sun goes down, you're still going to have power at your house, even if you don't have batteries. You'll just draw from the grid at those hours.
So now I understand that in order to power things when the electricity goes out, I'm going to need batteries. But how much is that going to cost me if I want?
That's a good question. Okay, just to cover a couple things to make sure we got it right. In order to have solar on your house, you don't have to have batteries.
Okay.
It'll work without the batteries. Now, if the power goes out at your house and you want your solar to work, you'll need to have batteries and then a critical loads panel or a panel that will run when the power's out. We call that like a solar generator. So you have solar panels and batteries that will run a certain number of loads when the power's out. So that's how that works. Okay, cost of batteries. Battery prices have come down. The equipment has gotten more sophisticated. The inverters are computers. We're doing firmware updates on them now, and it's just a much more sophisticated system than it was when we put our first battery system in West Virginia, which was in 2007. So I've lived with a battery backup system since 2007, so for 13 years. So I've got lots of experience actually living with it, and I'm not the electrician, I'm not the engineer. I'm just a regular homeowner when it comes to batteries. I just want everything to work when I want it to work. Okay, so the cost. The cost can range from a minimum of, say, $12,000 to $14,000 on the low end for a small system that'll run a few things, up to $20,000 and more for a larger battery system, depending on what it is you're trying to run. So it's important to note that if you add solar when you're adding the batteries, that the 26% federal tax credit covers the solar panels and the batteries and all the associated labor and associated fees. So there's that 26% on top of that. So there's a quick place to look for battery numbers. The average, I'd say the average battery system we put in last year was probably about $25,000 in addition to the solar panel cost. That was what most people chose. That's important because people think, oh, wow, it might be 12 to 14 to 20, but I bet people are spending 40,000 to 50. Well, there are people that are. They're spending more than that. But the average is about 25,000 of additional dollars that they chose on their budget to make it work.
Okay.
Oftentimes, people will look at a way they could expand that in the future. So a note here, the system has changed. The systems have changed dramatically. It used to be you could AC couple or DC couple at the time you installed. Now you can pick a variety of different ways to expand your system. Now you can start with the solar panels and then add the batteries and then add a generator and you've already got the grid. Or you could start from one direction and go over, or from this direction and come back. You can start wherever you want now. We see 25% of our customers, there are return customers. Usually they're adding batteries or adding more solar or adding another component to their system. So it's important to understand that when you're first interested in solar, You talk about batteries to understand what it is and what it'll do for you, and see if it's something that you want. If it's not something that makes sense right now, be fully aware that you're able to add it at a later date when you decide to increase your system. And 1 in 4 people increase systems.
You mentioned critical loads. What type of things, what goes on a critical loads?
Good question. So the other part was like, what will that power? Well, the idea is that the battery systems are all custom designed. There's a variety of parameters that we all fall into, but most people are saying, look, I want to be able, if you live in a rural location, the top things they want to run are the well pump, potentially a sewage pump. They want to run the refrigerator, the freezer, a few lights, the microwave, a coffee maker, things like that. So those loads we consider like the critical loads. Those are the ones that you'd want to have running during an ice storm outage for several days, or if the power line was knocked down for several days, you'd like to have all those things operating. That's kind of critical load. But beyond that, you can really pick as many circuits as you want, and we will custom design the battery system to fit your needs with your budget. So what we do is we get folks to give us a battery load list of things they'd like to run and for the duration they'd like to run it. We design the system in-house with our engineers and designers to give you the right size battery for your needs and then give you a budget with that. Now, oftentimes people will pick a bigger list up until they see the budget, and then once they see the number, it may be out of their budget, then they just simply pull the list back a little bit and they get a number that fits for them budget-wise.
Okay.
I think that's important. Don't just say, oh, no, it's too much. Well, just bring the list down a little bit and get the basics covered. Once you have those covered and you've enjoyed it through a few power outages, I bet you'll be back for more batteries and more solar.
Okay. Thank you.
I would like to add to that as well, if I can.
Yeah.
But for somebody that lives in a rural area where they have a lot of motor loads, well pump, septic system, then you would need additional battery capacity, and that could put that cost, $10,000 to $20,000 above a standby generator if you're looking to power all of that equipment at the same time. So slightly higher, but after the tax credit, you're pretty close. But over a 5-year period, minus the fuel costs and minus the general maintenance and upkeep of a standby generator, you're still about even at that capacity.
Okay.
Yep. One thing I want to add too is that what I didn't address is that battery chemistry. So the next, we'll probably hear another question that has something to do with that, but lead acid versus safe lithium batteries. There's a difference there. The costs can be similar. The performance is a little bit different. So depending on what your application is, our designers and engineers will work with you to pick the right battery chemistry, which is very important for the operation of the system.
Okay.
Okay, I want to talk to you about COVID and about solar. So we're a solar company, and we're continuing to sell and install solar in the Mid-Atlantic region. This is an unusual set of circumstances that we all have to understand and deal with. And we take this we're very responsible about our reaction to COVID so that we can minimize the spread of the virus. It's something that we started early on, and we started with our internal COVID statements as a company. And then we got those out to our current customers and also to our future customers. So what I want to do is share with you how the interaction works from the sales perspective. And then we'll talk about how the interaction works from after you sign the contract and we're actually at your property installing your equipment and managing all of the paperwork and details that go through that. So to start with the sales process, let me let Mike Studholme talk about that.
Okay. Yeah. So for our clients' protection, what we are doing is everything remotely as possible. So we have a lot of good software out there that allows us to put together remote estimates and proposals for you, and then go step by step through the process via phone and email, and if we need to, and if the homeowner is savvy enough to do a Google Hangout or something, a Zoom Hangout or something like that, to kind of go through things. And as we get farther and farther along in the process, and our homeowners are more interested in solar, every once in a while we may require a site visit to get some eyes on the actual site to make sure we get the pipe runs correct, or look at the service and make sure our tie-in points are all in an area that doesn't add cost to the project, and just to make sure we get that ahead of time. Otherwise, we can do almost everything remotely, and we may lean on our homeowners to take some photos for us more than usual, because this is business as unusual, and we're really trying to work with the homeowners as close as possible, but also while as distant as possible. So yes, thank you for working with us through the process. And if you're not comfortable with something at any time and place, don't hesitate to say. Everybody's wearing gloves and masks that will be in your presence. And if you're not comfortable, don't hesitate to mention.
That's great. Thanks, Mike. So it's a remote operation during the sales process, and usually we don't need to do a site visit. We can gather the information remotely and from the customer. All right. So now once the contract is signed and the permit's been secured and their connection agreement's complete, we've ordered the material and the crew's ready to come out to your house and install it. We schedule that install obviously with you, the homeowner, and then we work at your convenience. And what we've done is developed a way where there's no up close interaction with the customer. We do it all from a distance. So normally we would knock on the door and say hello and shake your hand and say, hey, we're here to work, and this is Ryan, and here's the other guys, and I'm in charge today, and I can help you with anything that comes up. Now what we're doing is we're sending out an email that lets you know that we are going to come to the house and who's going to be there that's in charge. Then when we get to the job site, there'll be an opportunity for you maybe to wave out the window, or we'll wave back to you and say, hey, we're here, we're working. You already know we're going to be there, but now we're here. And then we're not going to have any up close and interpersonal connection there. So then the guys will be working on the roof or the ground mount to put the solar on, and then we'll be working on the electrical component, which will be getting the solar panels tied into your utility panel. So we could either be in your garage or maybe in the basement, and we're going to be isolated from you and your family, and we're going to be very, very careful to make sure that we wipe everything down on the way into your house, and then we wipe it down on the way out. So the guys have hand sanitizer, they have wipes, they have Lysol, they keep themselves and the vehicle sanitized, and then we sanitize as we walk into your home, and then when we're done, we wipe everything down on the way out. So, chances are we hit the light switch. We definitely had our hands on your doorknob. We're working near where the solar is going, and we might have touched the counter spaces there or the wall. So everything gets wiped down for your safety and for ours. So we take this very, very seriously. We've had great customer feedback from the jobs we've installed. People have been very appreciative that we're taking extra precaution. We think this is important. We're taking this seriously. Your health and our health is of the utmost importance to all of us. And being able to put in your solar system during these unusual times is a little bit more difficult, but it can be done safely and securely. So we thank you for your patience, and we thank you for your continued support. And we want to assure you that our crew is very careful the entire time they're working. That includes getting fuel at the filling station, stopping by a convenience store, stopping by the electrical supply house. All of that is done very carefully, oftentimes with curbside pickup. So we're minimizing the contact that we have for our employee safety and for yours. And that's how we handle COVID. It's been working out very well, and we're going to continue this as long as we need to. Thank you. Also, we're going to be very careful to make sure that none of our employees are sick or feeling ill or feeling under the weather. Anybody that has any sort of, I'm not feeling so good, they're just staying home that day. Doesn't mean they have a full-on, fever. It's they're not feeling good. They're just going to stay home. We're not going to take any chances. So there'll be no opportunity for anybody with a temperature to be on the property. We want to preserve the health of our workforce, and everybody's agreed to be super vigilant if they're feeling a little bit under the weather. So a little bit of a sore throat, it could be allergies, it could be something else. Just stay home that day. And then, the next day, if you're feeling better, come on back to work. If you're not, stay home again. And while people are staying at home, we're taking care of them, making sure that people are receiving the income that they need to support their bills. It's a commitment our company's made to our employees. So safe employees in a safe work environment is our number one goal here. Thank you.
So when it comes to finalizing a project and signing a contract, what we're able to do is actually sign remotely via the use of DocuSign. So there's no in-person contact on that front either. So just wanted to let you know that.